Welcome back. I'm Pat, that Halloween movie collector. I'm back with another one of my top 10 albums, my 10 favorite albums from a year in the 80s, and now we're up to 1986. 86 had a lot of albums when I was going through this. A very mixed bag of genres and bands, and I was all over the place when I was doing this list. I have a hell of a lot of honorable mentions because there was a shit ton of great albums that came out that year, and that wasn't easy narrowing down my top 10. First, the top four were usually always a given, but the rest of them, not so easy. Some interesting picks. So let's start my honorable mentions because there's a lot of them right now. Told you, right? A lot of honorable mentions, mixed bag. Now we're right in the heart of where so-called hair band would be started, 1986. 86, nostalgic year for me. Started high school. I was a freshman in high school and really started getting into playing guitar, listened to a lot more music. That's why it's such a long list this time around. I just got my first Sony rack system with the 5-disc changer and started buying CDs rather than vinyl. So 86, definitely a big year for me as far as music. So it was interesting going through this and picking my favorite 10. But you know what? Here it goes. So my number 10, released on November 19th, 1986, The Dead Kennedys, Bedtime for Democracy. If you've been watching these videos, you know I'm a big punk rock guy. I love my punk rock, and I love The Dead Kennedys. They've appeared on several of these lists. And Bedtime, this was their last album with Jello before they split up. And it's basically a full album of like political satire, but it's interesting. The music is actually really good, and it's got Jello's political spin on it, where he's not really left leaning, he's not really right leaning, he's just in his own island. So it's got some real interesting lyrics like chicken shit conformist, Gone with My Wind. Interesting titles and the album itself. If you look at the cover, it's got some great artwork. I used to sit there and look at the artwork on the album. It came with a sheet of paper in there with the LP did with a bunch of other artwork on it. So it just kept you entertained the whole time. And I just found it fun. I actually just revisited this not that long ago because as I was doing these videos, I started really listening to DK again because not that I didn't listen to them, but not as much as I used to. And I was just listening to this and just saying, this is some great, great stuff. But yeah, my number 10, very acquired taste, but Dead Kennedys, Bedtime for Democracy. Number 9, released on April 14th, 1986, Judas Priest, Turbo. I know, this is like their fluff album. This was their hair metal album. Very poppy, but you know, I love this album. I don't care, and I make no apologies for it. I know some hardcore Judas Priest fans don't really care much for it because it was like the Judas Priest hair band pop album. But I like this. There's some great songs on here. I remember, I mentioned, I think on my last top 10, how a lot of the albums I used to get when I used to win them on the Jersey Shore boardwalks. And I remember vividly winning this in 86 because I couldn't wait to get it and I won it on the boardwalk. And I mean, it's got some stuff. I mean, yeah, it's got some goofy stuff like Parental Guidance. You know, it's a little goofy. But I mean, Turbo is a great song. It's got some cool effects in it. It's not bad. Private Property. I mean, Locked In is probably the heaviest song on there, and it's a great song, so I make no apologies. I'm a Priest fan. If you've been watching these, they've been on every list for every album they put out so far. They're here because I love Judas Priest. And this was, love it or hate it, I love it. Caden, my number 8, released on June 8th of 1986. Now, I've mentioned this band before. You may or may not have heard of them. Love them to death. One of my favorite bands of the 80s. TSOL, Revenge. Now, for those who don't know, they were like skate punk. They delved a little bit more into hard rock when they with the addition of Joe Wood on vocals, vis-a-vis the last album before this, which was Changed Today, which made my last list as well. This album was more mainstream. They had MTV videos on there. They were, like I said, if you ever watched the Sweet Child of Mine video, you'll see Steven Adler wear the TSOL t-shirt because they were buddies. They were a pretty big LA band at the time. And I love this album. I mean, there's some great stuff on here, from Revenge, Colors, Memories. Nothing for You. If you, my horror movie fans watching this, Nothing for You was on the soundtrack to Return of the Living Dead that year. So if you ever remember the scene of them walking into the gang walking into the graveyard, and he's carrying a big boom box, that's what's playing. It's TSOL, Nothing for You. So this album, big nostalgia. I love this. I wish TSOL reverted back to their original lineup, which is basically just skate punk, which I like. And they've been doing it for years, but I'm ready for them to go back to the Joe Wood years and start doing this. Although Joe Wood, the singer, does do his own stuff. I saw him a couple of years ago. I think I mentioned it on one of the other episodes with my son. And we saw him, he did all the old hits, and it was just great. So, yeah, if you haven't heard TSOL, give him a shot, especially the Joe Wood years. You really like him. One of my favorite bands. Number 7, released on March 24th, 1986. This was a seismic shift in the force this year. And talking about Van Halen, 5150, right? The first album with Sammy Hagar. Now, it took me a while to come around to this album. I liked Sammy Hagar on his own. I loved all his solo stuff. And I thought it an odd pairing, but I mean, it worked. It was a different type of Van Halen music. You know, you didn't have there was guitars. It's Eddie Van Halen, but it wasn't like driven to like drinking and partying and chicks like it was with the David Lee Roth days. It was a little bit more melodic, obviously a lot more keys because he introduced them in the 84 album. But it did take me a while to come around to this. That's why it's not so low on this list. It's a little bit higher up. That's to say I don't love it. I love it. Great songs. I mean, Best of Both Worlds. Dreams was huge. I remember trying to learn how to play the intro of that on acoustic guitar back then. Love Walks In, Why Can't This Be Love? I mean, there's tons of hits. I mean, they say what you want. If you don't like the Van Hagar years, it took them to the stratosphere, even more popular than they were with David Lee Roth, believe it or not. But great album. I do like the production on here. I will say this. I mean, I love the Brown sound, which was a chunkier sound that you got on a lot of the David Lee Roth albums. Going forward, you didn't have the Brown sound as much because you had a little bit of the synth in there, but the production was second to none. And I do like it, and it was our introduction to Van Hagar, and they'll be on many more lists going forward. My number 6, released on September 29th of 1986. They've been on several of these albums. I love them to death. Iron Maiden, Somewhere in Time. This album was big because, like I said, this is the year I started really getting into playing music, and "Wasted Years" was the single off of this, and it was huge. And loved the song, loved just the intro part, which was very easy on one string, so it was easy to learn. The rest of the song, not so much. I mean, the chords, yeah, but the solo wasn't easy. But eventually, I did learn it, and I'd love to get a hold of it. Anybody in my freaking high school graduating class that has a video of this, of me and my friends playing "Wasted Years" in the talent show that year. I don't have a video copy of it. It sucks. Love to get a copy of it. But Caught Somewhere in Time, Stranger to Strange Land. This album is just chock full, I should say, of Maiden classics. And just like I said, very nostalgic, great sound, great production. Remember just wearing the shit out of this CD when I first bought it. I did get it on vinyl too, because I remember, like I said, around this time vinyl was starting to fall out of favor, so I was buying more CDs. But I tend to, the bands that I really love, like, obviously Maiden and Kiss and Van Halen and Black Sabbath, I tend to buy both at the time. I was getting both because which sucked because, at the time I worked at a movie theater. 86, I got a job working at a movie theater. As an usher, concession, ticket taker, I did everything. And that's how I saved money to go to concerts and buy albums and CDs. That's all I spent my money on at the time. So, yeah, I did buy both, and I do remember a lot of the cool cover art on this because, hey, it's Eddie. It was very futuristic, very Terminator-ish, but I love it. All right, my number 5, released on March 3rd, 1986. Don't throw anything at the screen. Please don't throw anything at the screen. Metallica, Master of Puppets. I know it's not number 1. I did mention on these videos, when I do these, I just go back and say, what did I listen to the most when these came out? What were my favorite albums of 1986? In 86, not necessarily now. That's how I try to do it. And in 86, I was not a Metallica fan yet. I knew of them, heard their songs, liked them, but I was not over the moon about them until years later. I was still in my punk rock days. I still liked my metal. I still like Kiss and everything, but I just didn't just go gaga over it had just yet. Eventually I did. I'm a huge Metallica fan. Seen them many times, love them to death. But I just go back to this year, and the albums I'm on that are on this list in this order are the ones that I was really into the most. And so that's why it's number 5. So don't throw anything to the fucking screen. It's not like I don't like it. I mean, of course, you gotta love it. I mean, Sanitarium, Battery, Master of Puppets. I mean, it reads every song on here. It's one of those albums where every song is great. There's no skippers. You could just listen to every single one of them. Little melancholy because of what happened. This was the last album with Cliff Burton because of the tragic accident. I did see them on this tour, but I didn't see them with Cliff Burton. I saw them with Jason Newsted. He had just come in. I saw him at the Monsters of Rock Festival in Giant Stadium at the time in East Rutherford, New Jersey, because I used to live in northern New Jersey. So that was what? It was Van Halen. First time I got to see Van Halen with Sammy Hagar. It was Van Halen, Scorpions, Dokken, Metallica, and Kingdom Come, if you remember Kingdom Come. So I love this album. Like I said, love it more as I got older when I really started deep diving into Metallica. I was late to the show, not because I didn't like them, just because I just didn't dive too hard into it. What's coming up next is actually what I dove into a little bit first, and I loved, and you'll find out why in 1 second. But yeah, love me some Master of Puppets, iconic album, and there you go. And my number 4, released on July 20th, 1986, and this is what I was saying, Megadeth. Peace sells, but who's buying? I actually got into Megadeth before Metallica. Love the guitar playing of Dave Mustaine. Loved his voice. I love the growly, gritty voice that he has. Like, this jokes like, I don't know, I just liked it. And this album is just fucking awesome. I love it. I mean, just from the cover art itself, you just jump in there like, wow, this looks cool as hell. It's very Iron Maiden-ish. All their covers were very Iron Maiden-ish. Not necessarily always with the same theme like Eddie. But the songs on here, I mean, come on. From Peace Sells, Wake Up Dead. There's so many. I don't know. I can't even say it. It's just, I love this album. I've played the shit out of this album. Love seeing them live, seeing Megadeth live. Probably just as much as Metallica. Seen them with Metallica on the Big Four tour years ago in Yankee Stadium. Just love his playing. Love the sound of his guitar. And I love, because I remember reading at the time, and he was pushing hard because he was doing everything he could to try to outdo Metallica because they really hadn't reconciled at that point. And so he was at his best. And this is not even the best. As you go forward, you're going to see some more Megadeth high on these lists because every album just kept coming and they were just great. But Peace Sells, oh, what a great album. One of my favorites. My number 3, released on November 15th of 1986. He's appeared number 1 on this list several times because he's my guitar god. Stevie Vaughan, Live Alive, his first one and only. Actually, no, it's not his one and only because they did put out Live at the El Macambo, but that was after he passed. This was his one and only live album he put out in his lifetime, I should say. And it's just fucking, I mean, if you listen to Stevie Ray Vaughan and appreciate and love him like I do, and you listen to his albums, and you hear a song, like say you hear like Pride and Joy or Texas Flood or Couldn't Stand the Weather or Riviera Paradise, and you listen and you say, how can it get any better? Listen to him live. It gets better. He changes things and embellishes things, and it just gets it even better. And biggest regret of my life, not getting the chance to see him before he died. So Live Live's got all the classics on there: Pride and Joy, Cold Shot, Texas Flood, Love Struck Baby, and the versions that are on there are just unbelievable. If you're a Stevie Ray Vaughan fan, I'm preaching to the choir. And I'm a huge Stevie Ray Vaughan fan, so love this album. Listen to it often, too. And actually, when I was doing this list, I had put it on my list of things to go back and listen to it, because it's not been a minute, but just got excited when I'm talking about it. So, yeah, love it. Stevie Ray Vaughan, Live Alive. And number 2, released on July 7th, 1986. Yes, the first full-length release from ex-Van Halen lead singer, David Lee Roth, Eat 'Em and Smile. Now, this album is another album I remember vividly winning on the Jersey Shore Boardwalk that summer. I remember getting it, and it had just come out, because we used to go in August, like late August, so it was already at the music stands. And saw Yankee Rose, the video for Yankee Rose on MTV, just like, wow, this is all. I mean, I love David Lee Roth, and you could, it's when he put out the little EP with California Girls and Just a Gigolo. It was kind of cool. It was kind of goofy, but this was the first full length album, and it just fucking from start to finish kicks your ass. I mean, he put together like the band of all bands: Greg Bissonette on the drums, Billy Sheehan on the bass, and freaking Steve Vai on guitar. I mean, you think, okay, look, you're leaving Van Halen, you're leaving Eddie Van Halen. Where are you gonna go? You're never going to get anywhere near there. What does he do? He goes out and gets Steve fucking Vai, who really wasn't well known at the time because he was straight off the plane with Zappa. And I mean, Zappa is an acquired taste, you know? I mean, I think he had put out Flexible by this time, which was like all his recordings he was doing while he was with Zappa, I should say. But Steve Vai wasn't a household name. It's just all of a sudden you saw this guitar player, you're like, oh, who the fuck is this guy? Holy shit. What an album. Yankee Rose, Shy Boy, which is actually a Talis song originally. The band Billy Sheehan was in years before. Elephant Gun, Going Crazy, great song. Another video on MTV. Then there's the covers, like the blues cover of Tobacco Road. That's Life, the Sinatra cover, because that's what Dave was, like the showman, the lounge singer type guy. But this album just fucking kicks ass. I'm sorry. I played the shit out of this album when I got it. Just fell in love with it. And that's another regret. I regret not seeing David Lee Roth when he toured for these albums like this or Skyscraper. You know, when he had his original band. I never got a chance to see that, and that really sucks. I only saw Vice solo several times on some of his solo shows, and I saw him with Whitesnake. But I would have loved to have seen him with DLR. And my number one, released on February 10th, 1986. He's topped several of my lists, and he's back on top again. The great Ozzy Osbourne with The Ultimate Sin. Another album played between this and Eat 'Em and Smile, wore the shit out of these two albums. The Ultimate Sin, I'm a big fan of Jakey Lee's guitar playing, man. I mean, I adore Randy Rhoads, but what a replacement. I mean, because there's some amazing guitar tracks on here, straight off of how great they were in Bark at the Moon. I mean, Shot in the Dark was huge. One of my favorite Ozzy songs. The Ultimate Sin itself is a great song. Thank God for the Bomb. Killer of Giants. Some stellar artwork on the cover as usual with Ozzy and the evil woman. This was I was trying to get to this concert. There was a reason why I didn't get to go to when they came to the Midlands Arena. I forget what the reason why. I was pissed because I didn't get to see them. I didn't get to see Ozzy until No Rest for the Wicked tour with Zakk Wylde. Would love to have seen him with Jakey Lee. Never saw Jakey Lee. Wanted to see Badlands at the time, and I actually remember, believe it or not, I remember going my prom weekend to the Jersey Shore to Seaside Heights. Like, if you're fans of the Jersey Shore, the TV show, that in New Jersey, when you had your prom, everybody went to Seaside Heights afterwards for the weekend and partied. And I remember being down there that year, and driving past like some club, like a club down there, and I'd seen on the marquee Badlands, and I was like, oh man! But of course, it's my prom weekend. I wasn't going to go to a show. My girlfriend wasn't going to let me go at the time either. But that would have been my only chance to see Badlands. Jakey Lee, man. Oh, another regret. I'm working on that regret video one of these days. But yeah, that's my number one, Ultimate Sin. Love this album. Ozzy's been top of the pops on many of these lists so far. Big Ozzy fan. Big Sabbath fan. So, and there you go. So those are my 10 favorite albums of 1986. Little mixed bag there. You know, this is where we were just coming out of new wave and starting to get into like hair band, which I don't like that term, but like, you know, the 80s metal, I like to call it. 80s style of metal. And it's just really starting to come into its own in 86. And then from 86 till Nirvana killed it 4 years later, you'll see a lot of that stuff on the list coming forward. And you probably noticed a bunch of it in my honorable mentions as well. So I hope you enjoyed this. Do me a favor. Hit that like button. Helps people find this channel. Find some more lists like this. Let's talk some music. Let's talk some horror. Let's talk all sorts of shit on this channel. The channel's a mixed bag, and that's the way I like it. And if you haven't subscribed already, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Don't cost nothing. This way you'll be notified when I come back and do 87 and so forth. I admit these are going to get sparse and maybe multiple years when we start getting to the 2000s, because I've become an old codger and I don't like anything from the last 20 years. I think it's all garbage. I'm just joking. I'm sure I can find some redeeming value I don't think I'll be going year by year though. So I hope you enjoyed this. Like, comment, subscribe, throw your list down here too. You know, I don't want to hear, oh, you left this off. I didn't leave anything off the list. This is my list. throw your list down here and let me hear it. Maybe I even missed an honorable mention or something like that. I do read the comments. I do like seeing people's lists. So until I'm back with 1987, talk to you soon.